Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. Make sure to share our episodes out and if you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the wide, wild world of animation. Super animation, if you can say. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And we're coming in hot with this episode because we are talking about season 2 of My Adventures with Superman. But before we get there, I do kind of want to assess how 2024 in superhero animated TV is going. I do feel a little bit bad that we still have not covered season 2 of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, but I'm just waiting for the second half of that season to have an actual release date. But we'll get to that one another day. For now, how have you felt about this year so far? Because I think between X-Men 97, Invincible season 2, and now this, I think we're in a pretty good place right now.
I think for TV animated superhero stuff, we are doing very well. We are eating a fine dining experience of a lot of trauma, a lot of violence, but a lot of really good writing also, and just really interesting and compelling stories being told. And they run the gambit. I mean, a lot of them are dealing with trauma, like Invincible and Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Like, very much a lot of the first half so far of Moon Girl is our main character getting over the near death experience of fighting. I think the villain's name was Particle Man.
Oh God.
And then having the sudden realization of, you know, not all supervillains are just bad people. It's usually people who are sadly put into bad situations by circumstance and, unfortunate events. Invincible is very much our main character dealing with the damage of his father, and as he slowly becomes the more violent, tyrannical Omni Man, his father becomes more pacifist and more peaceful instead of being, the blood hungry warlords that his species are. Very interesting. And then when we have X-Men 97 dealing with the fact that, maybe Magneto has a point, like jokingly, and no, he actually does have a point. He's just doing it in a way that's not going to help his cause.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like the most well executed version of that kind of trope slash joke slash story detail. So we got a lot of different types of stories being told here. That's good because that's what we've really been needing in our superheroes like media. Because if we're still going to be swimming in superhero stuff, even though shows like The Boys are going to wrap up, we're still going to get something like My Adventures with Superman season 3, and we'll talk more about this soon. Maybe more DC superhero stuff from the nods and winks from that finale of season 2, because that's really what has hurt superhero media, the lack of diverse and compelling stories. I mean, that's why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was pretty much the one good superhero movie from last year.
If we're not counting Across the Spider-Verse, that is.
Oh, well, that's so weird to compare and contrast to, because Spider-Verse is just such an entity of its own that it has the power to put on some shades and be like, I'm not related to these bunch. I'm the sequel to the Oscar winning first film. I got that on me, man. But that's really what's happened. It's like we don't care about origin stories that promise the better stuff later. The confusing or half baked ideas that go into some of the other ones. Just the fact that this year we only have what, two superhero movies? I mean, I know people aren't going to count Joker and Harley as a superhero movie because it's doing its own weird thing. But outside of that, I think all we got is Deadpool and Wolverine, which I know will probably make a lot of money. But story wise, I'm worried. Not like, oh no, if this doesn't do well, it'll be the end for Marvel. No, Marvel's going to be fine. They're just like a lot of this industry, they have to hit rock bottom and then pull themselves back up and do something different.
And for the record, I am glad that I wish it was under better circumstances, aside from a huge Hollywood strike that impacted everything. But it is nice that Marvel has taken some time to slow down, regroup, reconsider things, and hopefully that leads to better things in the future.
Because that needs to happen. As we've seen from these last few years, you can't just be a superhero movie anymore. Even people who were excited and loved the first Aquaman movie didn't really show up for the second one. I mean, I'm sure it did fine, but considering just how big of a movie the first Aquaman was, that's saying something. And like how people were like, hey, you know what? That Shazam was pretty solid until, the lead actor shot himself in the foot. And then the second one was just frankly terrible. And then obviously the super low point of everything with the Flash and the Marvels crashing, burning, and not doing well at the box office. But TV has shown that there is new life in superhero stuff. That Kite Man show just came out, and I've heard pretty solid things about it. So we'll have to talk about that in the future when the season wraps up.
Oh, yes.
But here we're given more time to work with the stories and the characters, and you're not limited to a 2 or 2.5 hour runtime to tell a compelling story. For example, with the topic of today's episode, My Adventures with Superman Season 2 does bring a lot to the table to continuously build upon the foundation that the first season gave us. And the first season's foundation was already pretty solid, even if it was a lot of, building the foundation of it all.
Of course.
But with the second season, we have Superman dealing with more of an identity crisis of who he is and his relationship and feeling of being wanted and home on Earth when he's obviously a freaking alien. And all the plots that build up from that igniting point of this season help build and talk about other things like discrimination, manipulation, abuse, and probably one of the best villains in like DC animation fandom, or at least one of the best incarnations of this iconic villain. Mike, let's start with you. What would you say My Adventures with Superman Season 2's strongest element is?
Okay, three things. Number one, this is in no particular order. Number one, they have probably one of the best versions of Brainiac, partially because he's voiced by Michael Emerson, who does an amazing job playing these conniving, manipulative villains. But also, and this kind of goes into number two, that Brainiac is how we're introduced to Supergirl, kind of gives us the best version of Kara Zor-El.
I will say this about Brainiac. I love the Bruce Timm version of Brainiac. Always have. It was my childhood version of growing up.
Same.
With that specific character, Corey Burton will mostly be my Brainiac. amazing to think he's also the voice of Count Dooku in those CGI Star Wars shows. And even if you're older from the 80s, he's Shockwave from the Transformers series. This version of Brainiac might be the best version of the character because the best thing a lot of these new takes on these superheroes can do is bring a different flavor of the villains, which this show has done very well with its takes on characters like Heatwave, Livewire, Banshee, and like some of the other characters. Even though I like this is a nitpick, I do not like how they've changed up Metallo. Like I get he's like the original idea was he was meant to be an experiment for war and that he was powered by kryptonite and that's what made him stand out. But when so much of Metallo's image is very much Malcolm McDowell as him from the 90s Superman cartoon, it's hard to go from realized character to now Metallo is just a bunch of drones powered by kryptonite, which yes, it still is Metallo, but it's like if they made a Mazo as like a group of robots instead of just the one threatening robot that could adapt to the situation and the powers of the heroes that he's fighting.
I wonder
But
if
that's just me.
I wonder if part of the reason they didn't do Metallo that way is because they already had a similar style villain with Atomic Skull. They didn't want to have like too many villains who kind of looked the same, but who knows?
That could be the case. I could absolutely see them doing that. It's like we either have Atomic Skull, which for some reason took me like a tiny second to realize it was him because I thought it was that one glowing green skull antagonist from Batman Beyond.
Oh, yep. I know who you're talking about.
And I was like, but that doesn't make sense. That's a Batman villain. So then when you said, I think that's Atomic Skull, and it's like, oh, duh. Because it very much has some similarities to the Justice League Unlimited version of Atomic Skull and less with the like Young Justice version, which was a very different take on him. But the show overall has still done a great job with building up new versions of these recognizable characters. We see more of Lex Luthor, voiced by Max Middleman, or aka Saitama from One Punch Man. And he goes from the first season being Dr. Ivo's slash Parasite's assistant to the slow build up and rise to the tech giant that the 90s Superman cartoon would use, or like from that version of the comics, because he's not really a real estate agent or
No.
anything like that from that iteration. But he's still like, the young, savvy, ambitious tech guy who he's not really looking for the better of humanity. He's there to make money and to get back at everyone that treated him wrong, even though everyone was right to call him out on like, yeah, dude, you built Parasite in that giant mech suit, man. It should be no shock that you were blacklisted.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I'm going to start a new meme by saying this, but thanks, Jimmy. Your words of encouragement are the reason why Lex Luthor got to where he was. Well, not really, but still. He inspired Lex to do that whole key speech at the convention that basically metaphorically and literally ostracized and alienated Superman because of the discrimination of, yes, he's an alien and he has all these powers and he might be helping us. But of course, from season one, they bring up the fact that, like, but what if he stops helping us and starts enslaving us? And that gets the ball rolling.
As it always does.
Then that's what starts Clark on, like, wanting to find himself again. Does he actually belong on Earth? Do the people of Earth actually love him? Like, do his friends love him? And what about this newly discovered fact that he has a cousin somewhere out there? But whatever little jokey nitpicks I have or criticisms I have of how some of these villains have been handled, like, really, you couldn't have done Damage in a more interesting way? Like, I get the art direction for the villains having more tech-based superpowers, but It took me a moment to realize that that was Damage. I feel like he's such a lesser known Superman villain because I thought it was like Blockbuster or something due to how big he got. Or I think I was like, to you, Mike, I was asking, who is his Bane wannabe?
Out of all like the newer villains in this season, Damage, he's the one I like the least, just because A, you only see him that one time, and then you just kind of don't really see more of him.
Now, he doesn't really have much of a character. Like all these other villains have much bigger personalities than just, I get beefy. Okay. But whatever issues I have are made up with the fact that we very much have a threatening Brainiac. He's no longer the I'm going to be a giant robot to destroy the city. He's like what we were talking about previously on The Lion King with Scar. Brainiac is at his best when he's not on the front lines or directly on the front line. He's a manipulator. He is a tactician. He does better with other people doing the work for him, or he uses other means to get what he wants instead of just brute force.
Yeah, he uses other people's brute force.
Yeah, exactly. Why raise a finger when you can have someone else raise their finger to blow up a planet? Like what he showed when he had Superman fight those hologram constructs of there was one alien that was a Green Lantern, which I think that was a nice little nod. And
Hmm.
then there was one of those, I want to say that's from either Darkseid's planet or War World, like insect demons.
Oh,
That
a
like,
parademon?
or it looked like one of those, or it could be another alien species that I forgot the name of from DC universe. And then of course the planet of what was it, Thanagar?
Yep.
The way it's interesting because when you are introduced to Supergirl, she talks about like my father's the one who showed me this worldview. And we'll talk more about Kara a little later, but I just focusing on Brainiac for this moment. You see the difference between how Superman was raised on Earth to how Kara was raised by Brainiac, and Brainiac just pretty much manipulated and abused Kara's ignorance to make her a war machine for him. She was the one who did all the damage, she did all of the destruction, while he sat back and berated her constantly if she felt any kind of sympathy or empathy for the planets that they took over.
And then even worse is when he's actively erasing her memory to just further gaslight her into believing that what she's doing is the right thing.
Exactly. So I like this version of Brainiac. Like, yes, I am also a little tired of the angular mech designs seen throughout this show. Not to the point where it's just like I want them to do something new or else. I just get that they all have the same kind of design structure. But I like this version of him that's not just something from like Superman Unbound or just another take on the Corey Burton, Bruce Timm version of the villain. He's a lot more active than other versions where they were pretty much in the background and then be like, here, I'll just send a swarm of robots after you. And then that doesn't work. And he's like, oh no, what happened? And of course, he's Brainiac. So obviously, by the end of the season, even though we see what happens to him, I don't think that's the last time we're going to see him.
No, he'll be back in a very unexpected way.
I mean, that's what was so great about that one episode from season one of Justice League Unlimited, where they think they're about to beat Lex Luthor, and then it turns out that Brainiac was inside of him this whole time. And you get that great body horror image of him just taking over Lex's body like he was the Thing from the John Carpenter version. It's just a great version of Brainiac that we have with this show. And Michael Emerson, who a lot of people would know from like Person of Interest and on Lost, like does a very good calculative take on the character. It's not as cold as Corey Burton's character, which I get why, but it's a lot more
Like
fun.
slimy.
That's a very good way to describe it. Very slimy and devilish in his ways of taking care of conquering the galaxy and such. I swore I thought we were going to get Zod because they keep saying there's that constant quote used in this whole season of "you must kneel before me," which is most of the time people like compare and contrast to Zod from the Superman movie and the shows
I think
wherever
they
he
did that
shows
on
up.
purpose, where they combined the characters of Zod and Brainiac to form this version. Because we've seen Zod enough in the first two Christopher Reeves Superman movies. He's in Man of Steel. He was in The Flash for some reason.
Oh, I'm wondering if that's why he wasn't in this season.
Could be.
Like, I mean, animation takes a long time. They could have been like, oh man, people are going to get so sick of the Michael Shannon Zod. Let's just not use him. We'll throw a red herring. But it doesn't mean that I don't like Brainiac as the main villain. I'm glad we got Brainiac as the main villain. I
Same.
like that we got different antagonistic encounters for the most part here, because after a while it's like, who's causing the destruction today? Oh, it's Lex Luthor. Must be a day that ends in Y. That it's Lex Luthor doing something evil. And yet for some reason he continues to escape jail and then at certain points becomes a politician with power. And it's just like, what? What's your second point that this new season does very well?
There's a quote that I think Heatwave says, love is not for cowards. And honestly, the love story between Lois and Clark, it's honestly incredible. Everything about Lois's character in this show has been super well handled, especially the episodes. Well, yeah, both of the episodes that centered around Lois and her dad.
I love the episode. I mean, I love both episodes where they go to rescue him and then having her dad stay with Jimmy and Clark, and just how, of course, he's a military man who's getting hunted down by Star Labs. Of course, he's going to be extremely paranoid and overly aware and defensive of any moment in time. But I like that we see more of Lois's constant dealing of feeling abandoned by the people she loves. Like we get that great set of flashbacks during one episode where Lois just feels like, you keep leaving me. You promise that you're going to be here for me, but then you leave. And then after a either predictable or very well executed misunderstanding of words, Superman grows more distant from her because he's overly worried that like maybe the people who I love don't love me back.
Oh, that trope gets me every time, no matter how many times I see it, where like a character overhears half of the conversation on the other side of the wall, and then it cuts to the other half, and it's like, if only you were able to hear the whole thing.
I mean, I know it's just like kick the door down and ask her, "What do you mean, Clark?" But of course, that would end the story, and you got to have drama. That's why these tropes exist. Yes, they
Mhm.
can be done poorly, but there's a reason why they exist and why nobody gets mad at them all of the time, because they get that you have to kick the story forward somehow. That's how we get, which I assume maybe your third, or I assume your third point of the introduction of Kara, or, Supergirl.
Yes.
And listen, I get that Supergirl has had a very one direction of how people write her in some of the more recent DC stuff. She doesn't change much from the 90s cartoon to the Justice League cartoon to some of the direct to video stuff. And then, of course, seeing her twice team up with the future based,
The League of
yeah,
Superheroes.
yeah, the League of Superheroes. Thank you. And see her fall in love with Brainiac's. Like, I swear to God, I'm not evil version. But here, I'm glad that we get pretty much a reboot of who she is. She's not the preppy, cocky little firecracker that she was in like the Bruce Timm versions of the shows, like from Justice League Unlimited and such. She's strong and she's aggressive, but she's got an innocence to her that is both adorable and makes her extremely likable. And it just makes it more sad when you find out about how Brainiac has been corrupting her mind and mentally abusing her for his own needs.
But before we get there, just the fact that Jimmy is the first person she meets on Earth is just all sorts of adorable.
The date between her and Jimmy is so cute. Just grade A adorable stuff. And I like a lot of the relationships we see in this show. Like, it was great to see Mala and Mr. Brain. Again, I love their back and forwards and how, yeah, we went through all these different multiverses that already had a Mr. Mala and Brain, and we may have gotten kicked out of the last one. And so that's why we're back here. It's totally not because we failed. But I also love seeing the supervillains outside of working for Task Force X. And at the very end, seeing them all get together to save the day. Well, except for Slade Wilson, but Slade sucks. So I'm still amazed that Slade is voiced by Chris Parnell. Like, I'm so used to his more comedy antics and performances that seeing him more threatening is still a little off-putting to me.
Only a little bit because, yeah, I'm more used to him as like Jerry from Rick and Morty, but it's both his performance and the design that makes him such a unique character in this series.
And I liked seeing Livewire and Heatwave together. I thought they made a cute couple. And I loved when Lois and Jimmy come to them to be like, we want your help to raid Star Labs. And they just, they can't take it seriously. They're just laughing. The animation, once again, is so good with the visual performances of the characters. Seeing Heatwave and Livewire be like laughing their heads off at the fact that Superman's girlfriend and right hand best friend want their help is so funny to them. And then they slowly realize, like, oh, you're serious. Okay. It's just like, I like these versions of the characters. They're not just evil after they get their powers. There's already a personality and a drive to them before they got the powers. I think the only villain character who is very much like straight evil outside of Amanda Waller, but we'll talk about her in a moment, is Atomic Skull, because otherwise everyone else was like, again, we may have done bad things, but situations in life put us into that place because of our origin, our upbringing. So to see them help out in the end was like a good way to show that not every supervillain is pure evil, because that's what happened with a lot of the Bruce Timm stuff. Once the villains got their powers, then they just become evil. There's no like Greek tragedy to the characters. It's just like, oh no, you feel bad for me, but don't want me to be a supervillain, but then I'm just a supervillain.
It kind of reminds you a little bit of Static Shock, where like once they get their powers, some of them try to be a little bit more three-dimensional, but once they get their powers, that just becomes their personality.
And it's a shame because sometimes you'd have episodes where they actually dive into the characters. It was just like that made them more compelling characters. Like, no, I'm not saying have redeemable supervillains. Sometimes you just gotta have an evil supervillain. But giving them more nuance makes them like more compelling characters. Like, yes, they could have just made Brain and Monsieur Mala like supervillains. Like, oh, we came back and we realized that we can take over this universe easily. No, they're just a couple that are just super happy that everyone's okay and still loves science with every fiber of their being. But I also like that they are slowly introducing other characters into this universe. Like I told you earlier when I finished up the show, they're going to introduce a Justice League or a Batman crossover at one point.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah,
I was honestly surprised that Silver State Cloud made an appearance. Like, that's a deep cut for Batman fans.
Well, it's just like there are a lot of deep cuts all over this season. There's Dr. John Irons, who we see as Steel. We have Silas Stone, aka Cyborg's father. Yeah, Silver St. Cloud, which I remember when the episode premiered and everyone saw her design. Everyone on Twitter was like, or at least all the animators and artists I follow were like, why is everyone on this show so freaking gorgeous? I love this design. It's a great design too. Good on everyone in this show for having like distinct body types. Because again, as much as I love the Bruce Timm stuff, everyone basically had the same square or hourglass figure
Yeah.
or downward triangle buff physique. But anyway, and then we have Hank Henshaw, which of course most people would know as Cyborg Superman. They're like laying down the groundwork for all of the like Easter eggs and possible foreshadowings of who we are going to see in the future because we're getting a third season. This isn't going to be like the end, even though they made sure to end this second season in a way to where if there wasn't a third season, it's like, okay, we're safe. Even though it's like, yeah, even after seeing this season, I would have loved a third season. So,
Hmm.
huzzah, we're getting a third season. And what other ones were there? Because I know we got other like villains and such. Like we got a little bit of Winslow Scott, aka the Toy Man, which I love this version of the Toy Man. I love this. What does he remind me of? He reminds me of Belle's father from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, with the mustache and just
Like homey, down to earth kind of
exactly.
performance. Because yes, I do love the DC animated Superman version where he's just a creepy talking toy. I'm still not going to get over the fact that when he showed up on Static Shock, someone's holding up like I think it's like a ping pong ball, and it's just like, okay, what are you going to do with that? And Toy Man's like, by the way, that thing has a nuke inside of it. And everyone's like, that's a little much, buddy. He's like, yeah, I know, but I'm a Toy Man. This show does a good job with building up the universe, and I think like it does such a good job of just making this whole universe feel lived in with all these different character appearances and cameos. I'm a little disappointed that I mean, well, I'll ask you this. What did you think of Jimmy Olsen's Firebird thing? Because I feel like they introduced that in the first episode that he was going to build up and have this huge brand, and then I don't feel like I feel like it just doesn't go anywhere because it got sidelined by the drama with Superman and Supergirl.
That's just one of the downsides of each season only having 10 episodes. Some subplots are just naturally going to be fallen by the wayside.
I mean, I like that Jimmy Olsen was willing to give up the remainder of his money to give to Livewire and Heatwave to get the ship and then go find Superman. But yeah, that's really the biggest problem is that I love this universe so much that I wish there was a little more time to explore in it. Maybe give them some breathing room. Like, at the very least, maybe 12 or 15 episodes a season. Like, I think the problem is premiere TV became such a big thing that it took over how production is made with normal TV shows because there's very little filler. And I think there needs to be a discussion on this podcast or maybe just in general of how do we define good and bad filler content or filler storytelling in TV and film or just mostly TV because when you think about filler it's usually brought up in a negative light like the Naruto filler arcs and anytime the One Piece manga needs time to make more stuff they put in a non-canon filler arc to fill the void until they are able to make more of the main storyline.
And I think therein lies the problem. The word filler has been, and I hate that I'm using this word, appropriated from the anime manga community to basically turn the word into nothing. Where filler in like Western parlance has become filler to where we've kind of flattened the word to mean episodes that don't advance the plot, which that's not really my definition of the word. And also, as you said earlier, filler is not necessarily a bad thing. Like shows like this could use more filler episodes. Like a day at the beach or I don't know, like a holiday special, kind of like what they did at the end of last season, like Thanksgiving at the Kent farm.
I love that episode.
Same. But my point is, we like TV in general needs to have room for even just one episode to like break up the story a little bit.
Like, I wanted to see a little more of Amanda Waller this time around. I love Deborah Wilson's performance as her. And I love that little introduction of when we find her making breakfast to try to persuade General Sam Lane to talk about what he knows, all that stuff. But I loved, like, when you see her wake up, she's like, it's a new day. You will conquer it with an iron fist. And then it goes through that little montage of her making breakfast. Like, I want to see more of these characters. There's like a new life given to all of them. I want to see like an episode where Perry White and Vicky Vale
Yeah.
compete in like a Tom and Jerry like or Looney Tunes like antics of getting the first exclusive scoop on something.
That would be a fun side story.
I mean, that's what was so great about that punchline in the last episode, that Perry might have gotten a great story about Superman, but Vale got an exclusive story of a Supergirl. That punchline was so funny. I just wanted to see more of that. Maybe there could have been more time for Jimmy and Supergirl's relationship to blossom, because what we got was super cute because they pick and chose what they showed and how they told that story. But I wanted there to be more. So it's not just so sudden when Superman and Lois have to break up, or it's like, okay, now we got to get to the Brainiac part of the plot. Because I would have loved to have seen maybe a bit of an episode focusing on Brainiac, just like his like slow rise to being the maniacal killer robot that he is. I'm not saying what he's doing is right. He's not right. But you understand that when the Kryptonians were going to call for a ceasefire, he knew he would be either shut down or relegated to menial tasks. So it's like, fine, I'm going to take all this programming of all this war that you put into me and kill y'all. Because there's just no stopping me now. Because what I liked about how this story was handled was they did a very different take on the man who has everything story near the second, like the last third, where Brainiac has taken over Superman's mind, and Superman is just living in a idealized version of when Krypton was still around. Like, that's the whole question. What do you get someone like Superman? That's why that episode from Justice League Unlimited was so good, because, well, one, the great moment of Batman and Wonder Woman talking about what they got Clark, and Wonder Woman's just like, oh, Batman, you didn't give him a gift card, did you? No. Cash. It's like, how is that any different, man? And it's just like, yes, Superman could have had a realized ideal world in life on Krypton, but he needed Lois. And
Mm-hmm.
I love stuff like that. It's just, this is probably the best version of Superman that I've seen in a while. Yes, I liked the version that we got in like Young Justice, but he wasn't really the focus of that show. He was in the background. It's like his arc was fully lived, and then he just had to deal with the fact that, oh, here's my son slash clone. Okay. How to deal with that. But here, since we get no connections to anything else, it's a new dawn, it's a new day. We get to start from level one to build upwards for something new and enticing.
I think this is probably my favorite version of Superman in the last decade or so. Don't get me wrong, as much as I love Man of Steel, I think this does a better job of making Metropolis more of a character, not just the people who inhabit it. and really putting the focus on Superman and Lois Lane. The one line in episode 9, which probably is one of my favorite episodes of the season, where they're about to break out of the Black Mercy simulation, and she says probably the best thing that defines Superman. I didn't name you Superman because of what you can do. I call you that because it's who you are.
Yeah, when Clark talks to Lois in the simulation, and she's like, wait a minute, I don't have superpowers. And it's like, well, yeah, you're human, but in my view, you're more than just human. And it's so sweet. This is such a sweet version of Superman and Lois. I even love that they, even though they still get kind of sidelined, the foils of Jimmy, Lois, and Clark at the Daily Planet, like the trio and such, that they were going to have to work like together with on some topics and such. I forgot what their names were, and I feel bad.
It's Steve Lombard, Ronnie Troop, and Cat Grant.
Steve Lombard. I love how much of a man child he is, and when they're doing all the pitching of like what they could focus on, and then he's just like, just put me on a yacht. That's the pitch. But I like that he comes back when Jimmy does the whole video stream of him getting arrested, and it's just like, what do they call him, like Wolf Bros or something like that?
The Wolf Pack.
The Wolf Pack sticks together, and he has that gaudy looking van with the wolf painting on it, which, oh, I love that scene. This is just a good show. It's a fresh look at these characters, and I'm wondering where they are going to go with this next one, because I don't think they're going to do something like Darkseid anytime soon.
We can save Darkseid for season 5 or 6, like,
or something like that.
Yeah, I think what they should do next is build up Lex Luthor, let him become the version of the character we all know and love.
We still haven't seen some supervillains in this show yet. Like, I want to see a little more of Winslow Scott, just for the sake of, because Toyman's one of my favorite supervillains. I want to see Bizarro next.
Ooh.
I think that would be the next logical step, because they keep bringing up the multiverse stuff. And even though for this to happen, like if we wanted to see like Cyborg Superman, we would need to have the whole Doomsday thing happen. But I think that's too soon for this universe, because I mean, that was really where the high point, and then depending on who you asked, the low point of the Superman mythos started and stopped, because everyone was like, okay, let's kill Superman. Let's introduce a supervillain so strong that Superman's going to kill him. I don't think we'll see Brainiac back in the next season.
Next season would be too soon, but we could see things like Lex's rise to power. Maybe he even creates a clone of Superman and it becomes something of a Bizarro. Or, we've seen the multiverse already. Why don't we have another multiverse shenanigan episode?
That might mean we'll have to see Mr.
Mxyzptlk.
God, this is why I would lose to a fight with this supervillain. I have no idea how to say his name or spell his name. I had a thought today of like who I'd love to see as that character. I was like, Weird Al would be a great version of that, but of course we already got a version of him with David Errigo Jr., who does a great job with the character. I guess I had Weird Al on the mind because of his new Polka single. I mean, like, he would do a great reality bending super villain. Anyway, and of course, I want to see more of Supergirl, because, and like, of course, with her and Jimmy, but I just want to see her have more time to adapt to Earth. And it would mean that we get to see more of Kiana Madeira, who does a great job. I love that moment where Superman is putting the something away, and then he sees all the cute photos, and he's just like, wait, Jimmy? You know my Jimmy? Wait, did you go on a date with Jimmy? And she's like, no, shut up. Give me the photos. It's like good brother-sister dynamics between the two. Even though, I mean, they're cousins, but They're like an older brother, younger sister.
There's a tweet of mine that went viral where Kara says, I will not crush him. I will simply conquer his planet. I just kind of ran with that.
I love that. It's such a take on the tsundere, saying like, yeah, it's not like I like him or anything. I just want to crush his planet. Maybe go out and get a hot dog and some ice cream with him. It was a good season. It builds up on the first. It continues to expand its universe, and it fleshes out the drama that realistically should happen with a character like Superman. Probably the best show of the year so far, maybe. I mean, it's tough. I love X-Men 97, but I think I might like this one a little more than X-Men 97. I mean, and maybe it's just because I grew up more on the Superman stuff than X-Men. So that might be why I like this more than 97, but superhero cartoons have been really good this year so far. And
They have. I only have X-Men 97 slightly higher. I've watched multiple episodes of that season multiple times. I'm more in the rhythm of it, but just off my first viewing of My Adventures with Superman season 2 and being such a huge, this show absolutely rules.
it's new life in a genre that needed it. And like I said, I want to see more. I want to see Silver St. Cloud again. I want to see all these characters again. I want to see Steel again. I think his character was extremely likable in this version. I wonder if we'll see him with a better mech suit than the one he has. That was very much like hey, it's a prototype, but I got to use it to stop these robots. And I want to see what happens with Slade Wilson and Lex Luthor, because it seems like they're now on the up and ups with one another. Amanda Waller and Sam Lane are off the grid. But we'll have to see what happens, because we probably won't see this until next year, maybe.
At the earliest, it'll be summer or fall of 2025. At the latest, it'll be like January 2026.
Either way, give them the time they need.
Exactly.
Don't think I have much else to say about this show. I just think it's a really good superhero show. Not just a good superhero show, a good show. It just has this nice, sweet, endearing take on the characters that I hope we see. Either if this is the same team that made this makes like a Batman or Justice League cartoon next.
I have a feeling they're going to do something with either Batman or Justice League.
They already have hints of Batman and Green Lantern. They're going to do something.
Exactly. Speaking of Batman, we have coming soon in like a few weeks. We've got on Prime Video Batman, the Caped Crusader. Kite Man already started on Max, as did I can't believe this show still exists, the Suicide Squad Isekai, which we'll be talking about after we do the summer anime impressions. And then we got Creature Commandos. So DC animation is in a really exciting place.
It's amazing how DC has pretty much beat Marvel beat for beat with TV animation. Not that I'm not trying to make this a thing between Marvel and DC. It's more Marvel has not hit like or had lightning in a bottle with their animation stuff. I'm assuming that's because Disney is trying to sand the edges off of Marvel as much as they can to make it as widespread appeal as possible, even though that's not a good idea. Like there was that 2010 Avengers cartoon that was really good, but then we never got anything at that level again. So I hope they do have something like that, because I know a lot of people like the Marvel What If shows and such, and I want to see how that Spider-Man show turns out that
Same.
they're doing. But DC just has them beat right now in terms of TV stuff.
It's not just like one like house style either. Like these are all different shows with their own art styles.
I mean, that's what's fun. You get a variety, a cornucopia of different types of shows, depending on the mood that you're in for. Do you want your raunchy adult comedies where you got Kite Man and Harley Quinn? You want your heartwarming Superman? My Adventures with Superman. We're going to have Batman the Caped Crusader. And I'm just so curious what that Creature Commando show is going to be all about. I want to see that thing in motion, baby. Give me a clip of something. Like, if you're listening to us, DC or Warner Brothers Discovery, give us like a scoop or something. Send us something so we can react to it.
Even just a trailer. I know DC doesn't really have a presence at Comic-Con this year, but if they just give us like one clip of Creature Commando, I will be satisfied.
It's been kind of a weird time period to be a superhero fan. Like, I still consider myself a superhero fan, even though I'm not or haven't been a big fan of most of the movies, except for maybe like one or two here or there. And then, of course, the loud vocal minority of terrible fans makes it hard to get into and being supportive of superheroes, because it's like, yes, I love superhero stuff, but I'm not part of that group over there. They're just loud, terrible, and racist. Their stench clouds over all of the good fan and critics of superhero media. Like, we're not all just a bunch of terrible people, y'all. It's just, don't let those scummy dirtbags ruin something that can be vibrant, entertaining, and complex.
Exactly.
I just don't think. I think we're getting into a point right now where the executive meddling stage of everything is going to hurt everything more than help. And we need directors and higher ups being like, listen, let them cook. They're going to be fine. Let them be. Have to see how things go. And I don't know what we will talk about next time. But, it'll be animated related.
Of course. And until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world, called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and that place at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.